APEC CEO の
We have Mr. Thomas, APEC CEO of Skydio. Will take the podium. Tom has a lot of experience of founding startups and as an entrepreneur himself, serial entrepreneur. As you can see, in the past, he has an experience of founding companies himself, and today he is the CEO, APEC CEO of Skydio. This is the drone creating companies. So, Tom-san, please start whenever you're ready.
Thank you for coming, my talk. Thank you for coming for this event. I think this is a really important topic for Japan, how to grow the number of startups and unicorns that can compete globally. And I especially want to thank, I know there's over 100 of you joining by Zoom, which I'm very thankful for, but I especially want to thank the people who came in person, because to build an ecosystem, you do it together. And so it is important, I think, to network and attend these events when you can. And so even today is very cold and rainy, but I appreciate it. I think online you have translation, but I guess here I don't see earpieces, so there's no translation. So, okay. 日本語だったら助かりますって思ってくれる方いらっしゃいますか?
Who wants to hear this in English? Be honest, if you want to hear this directly in Japanese, or you have no problem listening to this presentation in English. So I don't know which language should I use.
The slides are mostly English, so I'll do a little bit of Japanese, and then just for the people who might not be as quick on the English here live, and then I'll probably just switch back and forth. We'll see. I'm gonna just play it by ear. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. So I put the title "Serial Entrepreneur as a Profession" in Google Translate, and it said "Renzoku Kyoko Nameru Nayo" as the subtitle. I hope that's right. That's a joke. I will have a few jokes in my presentation, but I will tell you some of them, they're jokes, because I know in Japan, it's very rare for the audience to laugh, and it makes me really uncomfortable. So please laugh when you know it's a joke. About me, I love startups. So I've been working with startups for almost 20 years. Currently, I'm the APAC CEO for Skydio, which is the world leader in autonomous flying drones. And we are a unicorn startup from the United States. And we are the first unicorn drone manufacturer in the United States and the largest drone manufacturer in the United States. But really, we're an AI and autonomy company. I actually said I was going to do some Japanese in it. もともと弁護士だった。最初にシリコンバレーに。
I started out my career as a lawyer when I went to the Silicon Valley, and at the time, the venture company and the investors were my customers. And at the time, Lincoln Turn, they were still very little venture. We supported them, and Sequoia, they're the venture capital. We had a lot of experience. I gained a lot of experience.
I want to plug LinkedIn. I think in Japan, people need to use LinkedIn more. If you want to become a global entrepreneur, global startup, global ecosystem member, you really should be on LinkedIn, right? It's really, where all of Western kind of entrepreneurs and VCs interact quite a bit. And it's how you can leverage your network for introductions and support, because you can see who people are connected to. So this is a really powerful tool that I think is not used in Japan enough. だからぜひ LinkedIn に参加してください。
So I really suggest you use this.
Google, I actually entered Google as a lawyer. And it was actually a really, really amazing time because at the time, I think Google's legal team was the best group of legal people in the world. And the general counsels of Twitter, Square, Pinterest, Dropbox, the USPTO head, general counsel of Reddit, they were all peers of mine. They were all coworkers of mine during that time at Google. So it was really a kind of a collection of some of the best legal minds, not me, but them that were available. And I got to learn a lot. But I switched when I entered Google. As a lawyer, I supported the Android team, but I was asked to kind of switch to a business role to lead kind of the business partnerships for Android, which I did. And then I led Android for APAC after that. After Google, I started, I left to become an entrepreneur. And I founded and was CEO of a few startups. The first was 3LM, which was a mobile security software startup. And I was CEO and founder of that, and we got acquired by Motorola in the US. I was then an entrepreneur in residence at Excel, which is a top tier venture fund. I then started and was CEO of a startup called NextBit, which was acquired by gaming company Razer. And then I was also co-founder, not CEO, but co-founder of a few other startups over my career. There we go. Including one that IPO'd on NASDAQ. Is it working? All right. Not bad. Okay. As I mentioned, then I was an EAR at Excel. And of course, I was an executive at Motorola, Google, Razer, and some of these other companies. I've also been an active angel investor. I've invested in more than 30 startups directly. I've been lucky enough that some of those have become unicorn startups. I'm a limited partner in 7 VC funds. So I invest in VC funds that then invest into hundreds of startups. And that way I'm exposed to these startups and sometimes engage with them. And I'm an advisor mentor in Antler, which is an international kind of incubator group. And they're just starting their Tokyo cohort, I think early next year. And I'm going to be a mentor there. So I've been very active in startups and I'm pretty old. So I've been doing this for a long time. That was kind of a joke, but not really. Okay, why do I love startups? Right, so obviously you can tell I spend all my life, adult life on startups and I really love it. Why? Does anybody know who this is?
Who knows this person? Please raise your hand if you do. That's okay. I didn't know him for very recently.
Of course, made the mRNA vaccine that many of us took here, right? And so if you have a fever or side effects, blame him. But he's also the founder of 40 other companies at some extent, right? He set up kind of a platform for starting companies, and then he recruits CEOs and founders, co-founders, and starts these companies, right? He gave this amazing talk at MIT in 2018 that I love and really inspired me. And so he asked this question in the beginning. I'm just going to copy him because copying smarter people is very good time-saving technique for startups. Okay, so this is his presentation now for a couple of slides. So he asked this question of the audience: what is the biggest innovation in the past 50 years in terms of value creation? Right, so if you think about in the last 50 years, what has been the most important kind of invention? So personal computer, PC, mobile phone device, internet. Yeah, okay. This is definitely winning for those of you on the Zoom. Internet's winning. Search and social networks, not so popular. Biotherapeutics, not a lot of life science people. Genome, CRISPR. Okay, lots of interesting questions. Seems like internet is the big winner. So his proposition was that the biggest innovation is the startup venture as a vehicle for innovation commercialization, right? It's not any of these products or technologies. It is the ecosystem enabling startups to develop and distribute technology at a massive scale at a very quick speed, right? So, you know, the entrepreneurs, the venture capital ecosystem, and then iteration, et cetera. So Microsoft, Apple, Google, Facebook, all these companies that you see here, right? And I love this answer. I think this is exactly right, right? The biggest innovation is the ecosystem around creating startups, right? That is the most important thing. And it's just fundamentally important to technological progress in our time. And another reason I love startups, for a while in 20 and 21, just 4 technology companies, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon, just 4, had a bigger market capitalization than the entire Japanese stock market. Right? Just think about it. If you look at the top 10 companies in the Japanese stock markets, 9 out of 10 of them are more than 50 or 60 years old, right? They're great companies, but they're very old. There's not a lot of new blood, new innovation, right? And so if you think about, if you compare that to just these 4 companies, right? That's the amount of value creation. And so I love startups because they're fun. And if you do it right, you can change the world. And because building a successful business is hard. So if you do it, why not try something huge? Any business is hard. Opening a store and selling a bakery, like a bakery or something, is hard. Everything is hard. But with a startup, the reward is if you succeed, it's much, much bigger impact, right? So why not go for it? So I'm here today because I'd like there to be more startups, and I want there to be better startups, especially here in Japan, right? And one key factor for a successful startup ecosystem is me. That was a joke. Thank you. Okay. But seriously, people like me, this is a joke, but it's a real point. Serial entrepreneurs are very important. Okay, why are they important? Two very important reasons. Serial entrepreneurs are better founders, and this is proven with data. And serial entrepreneurs are better investors. This is also proven with data. So there's a great book called Super Founders that my friend Ali wrote. And it's available in Japanese. You can buy it on Amazon. But I'm also going to give you like the 30-second description, unfortunately, but you should still buy the book because it's still wonderful. But what he did is he looked globally at all of the available unicorn startups that were at the time when he wrote the book. And he found that 70% had a founder in them that was a super founder. 70. Okay. A super founder is defined as the founder of a company, of a previous company that either exited at $10 million or more, or had at least $10 million in revenue. This was the most significant factor among anything else from unicorn founders, not their age, their education, where they went to school or level of education, their work experience before starting the company, whether or not they were technical, the market size of the industry they're going after, the location of their startup, the competitive landscape, et cetera. Nothing was as impactful as whether or not one of the founders was a serial entrepreneur, right? And in fact, the data shows that a super founder is 3.3 times sanbai ijo ni. So 3.3 times more likely to start a unicorn company. This is huge, right? Because a lot of luck is required. But if you're betting, and I have 2 tickets to sell you, and one has a 330% higher chance of winning, you want to buy that ticket, right? So it's very, very important. Also very interesting, even a failed serial entrepreneur, so somebody who failed and did not become a super founder, still has a 1.6 time higher chance of creating a unicorn than a completely new founder, right? So this is extremely important. This is the most critical factor for creating unicorns. So if Japan says we want 1,000 unicorns, right, then they have to help kind of either bring in or develop more serial entrepreneurs. Same for investors. A Wharton survey that's in Ali's book says that 85% of the most successful angels, counted by how many unicorns they have, were former founders. So if Japan is looking to grow the number of unicorn startups, then the number of serial entrepreneurs is, as future founders, future investors, is very important. Why? So why is that the case? My guess, my opinion, because entrepreneurism is a profession. And like any profession, you get better at it when you have experience and you have a better network of people because you spend time in it. Very simple, very obvious, but we love the myth of the prophet founder, right? Humans react to hero stories, hero journeys. Somebody who was chosen by the gods to come on earth has a vision for or a dream, and they work really hard and they make it happen. You know, that's the kind of story we all want to believe, but it's just not true. And these are examples just off the top of my head. I spent 10 minutes writing this slide, okay? So this is not a lot of research, but it's easy to show. Slack, great company, started out as a video game company. They were building an MMORPG, right? Totally failed. Stuart Butterfield, the CEO, was a serial entrepreneur, had a failure before, actually an MMO company originally. That turned into Flickr, which was a success, right? Then he started another MMO company, which wasn't working. That turned into Slack, right? Because they internally were using the tool and they loved it, right? Twitter was a side project at a failing podcast company, right? And originally the idea for it was essentially WhatsApp meets kind of a messenger status, like I'm busy right now, or I'm eating right now, or, you know, it was a very simple idea. It evolved into something that millions and millions of people around the world use. Instagram was originally a local check-in app. So it was basically Foursquare plus pictures. That was the entire concept. You go somewhere, I'm at a restaurant, you check in and you share a picture, right? And then it pivoted because users loved sharing the pictures. They didn't love to check in, right? Bill Gates, Microsoft is an amazing company, phenomenal. He didn't write DOS. He didn't have a vision to write an operating system for IBM and IBM clone PCs. His mom was on a charity board with an executive for IBM who mentioned that they need an operating system. He went and bought DOS, sold it to IBM, and made the brilliant negotiation to make it non-exclusive, right? Brilliant execution, amazing. I'm not taking anything away from that at all. But again, it's not the story of this mythical founder, right? Google, the founders didn't really want to start a company. Once Google started getting some traction, they tried to sell it for $1 million and they failed, right? Elon Musk did not start Tesla. I think he's absolutely responsible for its success, but it wasn't that he had this passion to start this car company. He came across it first as an investor and supported it and then joined it. And of course, Uber. Uber originally, if you look at the slides for the Series Seed, they said their addressable market was something like $10 million or $100 million because they were just focused on limousine drivers with downtime, right? It wasn't until Lyft started doing this, anybody can become a driver, that Uber was like, oh, that's a threat to us, let's do that. And it became Uber today, right? And of course, Facebook, according to the movie The Social Network, I have no information on this, potentially stole an idea, right? So it is true sometimes that you have a founder who's passionate about something and builds it, but most of the time, right, that's not the case, right? So this myth of the hero founder, with vision and stuff, is just overplayed and we need to move on from it. Truth is the professional founder. How many people know this person? I don't. This was a LinkedIn post that I found while I was making the slides and I liked it. So Jasper was the 5th company, so this is the CEO of Jasper. Jasper was the 5th company that he and his co-founders had started. None of the previous 4 exited. Some raised some funding, some had revenue, but they were basically all shut down, right? So they're not super founder. But now Jasper, they raised $125 million Series A with a 1.5 billion valuation, 18 months after starting the company, right? So professional entrepreneur, that's what he wanted to do. He got better at it and he found something that really worked. This is especially true for enterprise startups. Consumer startups require more luck, I believe, right? With enterprise, you get more benefit from being a serial entrepreneur because it's much more formulaic, right? Key factors for enterprise success, enterprise startups, is being able to engage with a customer before, during, and after development, right? Listen to them, understand the problem, hire well, and execute quickly. Really, that's it. If you can nail this formula, you can kind of build any kind of enterprise company, right? And the more experience you have, the better you're going to be and the better people you're going to have to hire. So what's my hopefully not bad advice? First of all, startups are great. So go start one or go work in one. That's number one. Working at a US startup in Japan, I think, is a great way to start or learn. Working big companies in Japan is a terrible place to learn. And if you work at a big company, I'm sorry, you should quit right away. When you do start one, be more ambitious and be less humble. So as an angel investor, when I see companies in Japan, I feel like they need to have bigger dreams, right? More ambition, right? Don't be so humble. Just, dream a little bigger. Doesn't mean you have to be mean. Don't be a jerk, but try harder. It's going to be hard anyway, so why not think big? Speed and focus are your only 2 weapons as a startup. This is critical to understand from the beginning. This is all you have. You don't have anything else. So out execute and move faster, right? Everything else is BS. Beware of survivor bias and black swan. Just Google these things, but these are terrible ways for startups to die because they see somebody else doing something and they're like, oh, we should do this. But they don't study all the failures that did that. They don't understand why. And there's a very strong recency bias and black swan situation where things will stick out in your memory and seem more common than they are, but they're actually really not. If you fail, do it again. Data says you have a better chance of succeeding. If you succeed, do it again. The data says you have a much better chance of succeeding. I showed these slides to my friend, Jeff Char, who's a very successful serial entrepreneur and educator here in Japan. And he suggested I deep dive on the good enough because he sees this as a very strong problem in Japan. So I'm going to deep dive on this a little bit. This is a quote from an author that I love. There's no such thing as good writing, only good rewriting, right? I think this is very true to pretty much every field and profession, right? So when I angel invest, I advise everyone not to spend too much time planning. You learn a lot more by doing and engaging with customers. Too much planning is actually a waste of time. Remember the examples of Slack, Instagram, etc. Complete pivots based on usage behavior, right? Once you get out there, you see what people react to and what not, what they don't. So I think in Japan, this is a little bit difficult because quality is so important. And that's great. I love the level of service here. I love buying Japanese goods, but it's also harmful to innovation. There's this 80-20 rule that is talked about a lot in Silicon Valley, which is you can get to 80% of your product or what you're working on fairly quickly. And then it's 20%, the last kind of features, the polish, et cetera, that ends up taking just as long, if not longer, and kind of kills you, right? And really, if speed and focus are your only weapons, right, this is where a lot of startups die. And so get out when it's good enough. Good enough just means that a customer can use it and give you usable feedback with things you can measure. That's it. Okay. I know in Japan, you want to make every customer happy and you don't want to have any complaints and bad experiences. That's crazy. You're going to die because you're losing speed and you're losing your only advantage as a startup, right? Get out, get feedback, measure, iterate. That's it. That's the only way you're going to succeed. I actually also asked ChatGPT because it's what everybody wants to do now for its advice about how to help Japan have a startup ecosystem. And ChatGPT said that ultimately the key is create a supportive ecosystem that encourages innovation and risk-taking. I thought that was pretty good. So I put it here. Sounds pretty good. Being comfortable with risk is important for any entrepreneur. Even if you fail, again, you're more likely to succeed. So we do have to focus on creating an environment in Japan where it's okay to fail. Failure needs to be okay because it's part of the process. It's also very important to create an environment where a founder can move on from a success, you know, especially after an IPO. So a lot of startups in Japan will IPO at a fairly, what I consider low valuation, right? $100 to $300 million, something like that, right? And then the founder is obligated to stay by the people who backed them, by the investors. They might take loans and have to buy stuff. All this stuff, it's crazy, right? Like, great, you IPO'd 200-300 million. There's a company. It's basically a good, successful small business. Quit. Move on, do it again, right? Don't stay there. And let's not create an environment where the founder feels like they have to stay there because it's better for everyone in the ecosystem if they don't, including investors and backers. Again, if you fail, do it again. If you succeed, do it again. And my friend Jeff agreed with ChatGPT as well. Also encourage more people to do it and others to do it. Let's encourage others. So I think I probably went over on time, but I would love to do some Q&A. Then Q&A は別に日本語でも英語でもどちらでも OK です。Thank you. All right, question.
Hi, I actually have two questions, but I'm just going to state one and then let you answer. So the first one is, you mentioned the 80-20 rule, and I couldn't agree more about the product quality. And I also have some experience starting a business here, and Japanese customers, especially in B2B, they tend to request a very high demand, high quality right from the start, even if they know you're a startup. And so do you have any tips or advice about how to go about this sort of, let's say, buying behavior or culture here?
The best words in enterprise sales in the US or Japan are the same. The answer is, it's on the roadmap. It is the best, most powerful answer you can give in any situation, right? It's on the roadmap. Don't commit to a time. Don't commit to specifics, but just say that it's on the roadmap. So make the customer feel appreciated. You've heard the feedback. You're going to look at it. You're going to solve it. Don't commit to a timeline, right? I think that's the biggest thing. I think at the end of the day, people are more understanding than you might expect. It doesn't come across necessarily sometimes in the tone of the requests, but as long as you tell them that you're taking it seriously and you're going to do it eventually, I think it's usually fine. And eventually you can even not do it. And it's okay as long as the product is otherwise working. That's worked for me, both in Japan and in the US. I think it's the best answer I can give off the cuff. And second question?
Right. The other one was basically the serial entrepreneur sort of culture that's sort of lacking in Japan. And I joined a company late as CEO, and then we were acquired. And it was very interesting experience. So in Japan, most people were like, you sold your soul, you're like, you'll sell off, you know, and all the American friends, or, you know, in Europe, they were like, oh, congratulations, like wonderful news, whatever. And then I stayed on as CEO for 2 years to do post-merge integration. But again, when I decided, okay, I want to resign after the lock period was gone, the reaction was not like, okay, great for you, but it's more like you're sort of abandoning the team sort of thing. And I wonder, I mean, I read a lot of English media. I spend some time in the States now and then, but like, okay, what's the question here? How can you sort of cultivate that? I mean, other than, of course, showing more examples of serial entrepreneurs, what do you think is the sort of the key essence there that makes it more acceptable?
So that's actually kind of the fundamental point that I'm trying to make, and maybe I didn't make it well, which is we need to respect entrepreneurship as a profession, as a job, right? So your job is not, I started a company to make XYZ, and my whole life I'm going to make XYZ. Your skill is starting companies, right? I think of myself more as like an artist or a creator, right? I create startups, companies. You create something new jobs, new technologies don't exist before, and that's my skill. I can gather people, I can raise funding, I can lead a team to develop and launch something, and that's my skill set. It's not that I have to love or have my life focused on that product or that company. It's my skill is creating these companies, right? And we need more people like that. So we really need to just have a shift in mentality that entrepreneurism is a profession, like a chef or a doctor or any other kind of job. And as an entrepreneur, your job is to start companies. It's not to die a slow death at the acquiring company with all of their procedures and PowerPoint presentations and endless meetings, because that is a waste of your talents. And we need to understand that. Like, entrepreneurs need to build companies. That is what they do. And so there shouldn't be an expectation that once they succeed with an exit, they have to stay there. I think we just have to shift that. So by recognizing it is a profession.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
はい、じゃあ、残りですね。最後に。
Thank you. So lastly, okay, in Japanese. I have a question. I am an entrepreneur and I won the pitch contest and I'm starting to be successful. Congratulations. My question is related to the funding. I have little chances to learn to meet the investor. So I borrowed my loan, putting away my house. If I fail, I'll lose my house, I'll probably lose my family. Maybe this was true in the past in the US. And it's also still the same in Japan. We are still the second or third generation entrepreneur in Japan. Maybe we are still very old times kind of, but how can you overcome that? I think you're wonderful. I respect you for taking that risk in believing yourself, in creating, starting up, founding your company. It's something that people should respect. Good luck. I really hope for your success. And to answer your question, in the US, the entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur, even not a serial entrepreneur, there are angel investor. In English, we say pay it forward. It's like what that means is that what you have succeeded will pass it over to the next generation, somebody else. So if you're lucky, so people accept that you are lucky. Of course, putting in the effort is also another aspect. But a lot of people make effort, and there are many, many smart and clever people. So it's not only your efforts and your cleverness that you have success, because you always need luck. So people do accept that they were also lucky, and they were lucky, they succeeded, and they have a connection, fund. So how can they contribute back to society? So that's how they think. So I think we need to increase the number of angel investors and entrepreneurs who have exited. Could be, I don't know how to put this, need to learn how to contribute back to next generation. So they're rich, they succeeded. So let's drink expensive alcohols and go to bars, expensive bars. That's not the mindset. I think they need to do the mind shift. It's easy to say, I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry. Thank you. I really hope for your success. Tom-san, thank you very much. The time